Well, let's get the show on the road. So we're going to start up on our feet, if that isn't already clear. Get a stance that's as wide as your hips or a little wider. As long as it doesn't seem, well, experiment. Alright? With letting your eyes close for a minute or two. And just feeling a very relaxed version of upright. At first, essentially without any squeeze or effort anywhere. And we're present and mindful of how we're standing, but not trying to tighten down very many spots. We're just aligning, stacking, organizing, and then softening where we can. In your jaw, your shoulders, even to some degree through your torso. Even the glutes can be relaxed for now. Should feel pretty comfortable and also relatively steady. Then, let's bring the hands very softly up to the chest anywhere that feels comfortable. High up around the collarbones, lower, closer to the rib cage. Just kind of up there where it feels comfortable. Your shoulders can still sort of hang down. They're actually still slightly externally rotated even though your hands are in front of you. Collarbones open up. And then ever so mildly, I touched on this, but we didn't really focus on it so much. Retract your head, so just that place where the tongue is attached at the hyoid bone. Go slightly backward. And we see if it allows us to gain a little length in the back of the neck. And we're also ensuring that the head doesn't land forward of the neck, but it rather aligns right on top of the neck, which means far less strain for your neck muscles and better aligned upper spine. Alright, so we've got the shoulders set with the arm position. We've got the head set with that hyoid bone back. Then we're going to add a little bit of tension in the torso, like we could take a little slap. Nothing beyond that, otherwise it might restrict the breath too much. But a little tension there, a little strength, a little different than when we first opened. And then down in the legs, hips, glutes, feet, kind of all interconnected with the move that we're about to employ. You want to get a sense that your feet, kind of connected all the way up to the glutes, those feet stick to the floor, but have a slight sense of trying to turn out. And or a slight sense of trying to pick up your mat like an eagle. Like your foot were a talon. And one or both of those actions is just going to put a little more strength in the legs. It's going to create contraction in your glutes. It's literally going to like embed your feet into the ground in a way that's a little different when we were standing casually. It should feel harder to get shoved. This is very much a working version of Tadasana. It's also the case that if you put a hand like so and a hand like so, they're both parallel to the ground. Right? We don't have like a lot of extension. We don't have a lot of flexion. They're just both parallel. Last minute here, let's assume arms along our side, thumbs face forward, everything else still employed. Hyoid bone back, collarbones open, front of the torso solid enough to take a little slap. Legs, hips, glutes, feet engaged in kind of a singular activity of embedding your stance and just making the whole thing stronger, more active, more dynamic. Last few breaths here. These last few breaths, everybody, really feel that capacity you have to coalesce along your midline. I know these demos sometimes seem kind of silly. I haven't used it in quite a while. But obviously this piece of foam has zero intelligence, no central nervous system, and there's one place and one place only where it's truly aligned. So there is like this plumb line. It's not merely imaginary. I mean, it is to some degree. It's a conceptual plumb line, but there's also this real capacity to truly be centered, upright, straight up and down, well aligned. Last few breaths here. And when you start to own that, it starts to feel good. And when you start to own it as a pattern, kind of in your mind and body, then you can employ it other times. And you get a little more sensitive even to how your body's being held when you're off your mat. Then your yoga's, fully in your life. Okay, so now from here, everybody, let's just do a very simple little arm swing. I think one everybody knows well by now. Oh, man. We'll just try about 50 of these guys. So we should cover about 50 swings in 60 seconds. The back swing's pretty much the exclusive focus of the action, although forward swings happen. You're welcome to every round or every other round or not at all as far as that goes. Let the hands barely converge when they backswing. Like my index fingers are just like barely tapping together. It could be more overt. Or you can just keep the hands wide on that backswing. Last few. Then let's get one arm doing the underhand pitch. Or maybe you think of it as the backstroke if it were a swimming gesture. Okay? And then a few forward overhand pitches slash more of a freestyle swim gesture. So in the water, this would take you forward. The last movement would propel you backward. Okay. And then release. Let's go for the backstrokes on the new arm. If you're throwing a ball, right, this is softball pitch. You release right there. If you're swimming, backstroke, really going for that power kind of right there, and as you're going through the water. I mean, ultimately, on dry land, and without a ball in your hand, I mean, you just move in circles, and then go the opposite direction. These parallels are kind of impossible not to draw. Oh man, that feels good. All right, last couple. Let's try. Whew, bang into the wall here. Double backstrokes. This would make for a weird move swimming, but both arms going the same way. Aye. And then double forward. And y'all feel it coming. Don't get panicked. One forward, one backward. Switch. 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 Oh, man. And release. Wait, no. Okay, so just a couple times. Let's get one leg swinging right along the side of your mat. Kind of like the arm pendulum we did earlier. It's very hard to do both legs at the same time, the swinging, so we'll stick with one. Okay, let's go to side two. This whole sequence will be pretty quick. Okay. Leg number two, sweep across the front of your mat. Again, if you're making the analogy with a sport and a ball, this would be kicking a soccer ball to the right and to the left. The first move was kicking the soccer ball forward and back. Alright, leg number two, movement pattern number two, sweeping. And then final little warm-up move for the hips, the circumduct. So if you're out there at 12, you kind of swing out to 3, and then maybe go across to 10 once you get it going. So a little semicircle. You might even be able to get almost 180 degrees. 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 12. You know, you'll get some amount of the clock circle. Last couple. Bueno. And then let's switch. Last one. Circumduct. Which wouldn't really work for kicking the soccer ball straight ahead, backward, left, or right. More of a semicircle move. let's release that. Let's go up to the front of the mat and grip hold with your toes and lift and lower the front corner of your mat. If you don't have a mat nearby, you're just working on the ground, you can go grab a towel if you want and just lift and lower that thing. You could just do this exercise with your foot without anything physical to hold, just kind of mocking the movement. But obviously with something physical to hold, it's very much confirmation that you've got the movement, that the muscles are working, the arch is active, the toes are gripping. You can use your foot kind of like you're using a hand, and then let it go very purposefully and deliberately. And repeat. Last few. Such a good one. We haven't done this one yet since we've been virtual. Whew. It cooks in here. All right, new side, new foot. Couple dozen lifts and lowers with the corner of your mat. Just kind of in general, well, I mean, yoga covers so many bases, but we work on the feet a lot. And one, just being barefooted as part of our practice just brings more alertness and awareness and just more tactile sensation, more feedback, more space for the toes, more opportunity for strength development in your feet, out of your shoe for a little while. And then dropping into really specific stuff like this, and the toe work we often do, and the tennis ball stuff we're about to hit. It's really, really good stuff for your feet. All right, let's release that. One more here before we hit the tennis ball. Stand with your feet real close together, and chances are your big toes are slightly apart, just naturally from each other. They probably, I mean, I don't know. I'm not looking at everybody's foot. But they probably veer a little bit in toward the fourth toe. So what we want to do for this exercise is spread the biggest toe away from its fourth toe so that the two big toes touch each other in their innermost center. You can see it down there, just, I can't really do a close-up. And then my toes are apart and they touch. So just try that about 24 times. So the act of, in this position, the act of bringing the big toes together to the point of touching means they're getting wide. The foot is getting even wider. That big toe is spreading away from its four partner toes and going over toward its neighbor foot toe. Does that make sense? Over toward its neighbor. Instead of moving toward the toe on its own foot, it's moving toward the toe on the other foot. Oh man, those are good. Last couple. We did do this one once, but we worked on it actually from a seated pose several weeks back. Oh man, that one's wearing out some muscles down there. Let's release that. Let's transition to, hopefully you have access to it, the tennis ball. Now if you don't have access to the tennis ball, you could just repeat what we did, right? Go back to the clawing work, go back to some toe work, and then you might even add like a little bit of like the pianoing kind of action with your toes. If you got access to a yoga tune-up ball or a tennis ball, step on it right on your arch, and just kind of do nice, long, at least as long as your arch is, kind of strokes up and down the foot, the sole of your foot. I've been barefooted for a lot of hours, a lot of my life. So my feet are pretty adapted to being out of a shoe. I've been doing some version of this exercise and even teaching it for almost 20 years. I love Jill Miller and Yoga Tune-Up, but definitely beat her to the punch with the massaging on the balls here. Some of you that were around back in the marketplace days remember the tennis balls coming onto the scene. Anyway, it's now basically an entire industry has blown up around self-massage and variations on these themes. It's awesome. It's a worthwhile industry. It's good, simple self-care. All that to say, I can really push down heavily into the ball and it feels great, but you've got to decide how much pressure works for you. So before we're done with this foot, cover some ground you hadn't covered. So if you've just been digging away in the arch, go to the middle of the foot, go to the side of the foot where the little toe is. If while you're kind of doing those long strokes, you discover a spot that's really sticky, hang out in there. See if you can de-gum it. Make it a little less stuck. At least give it a little love. Okay. Ooh. You're welcome also to press the ball right into the pad of the foot, as long as you're not like working with a golf ball or something. And then you can do that little piano movement with the toes from here. Ooh. Ooh. All right. And then lastly, before we switch feet, we're only going to do one of these. Take the ball on the pad of the foot, line up the flat foot, the one that doesn't have the ball under it. So you got one flat and one dorsiflexed, and then just hinge forward. It's probably going to be a little juicier on the leg where the ball is, because that calf has to stretch more. But it's nice for both sides. You might feel too, even though it's a little juicier on the ball side, that the ball side kind of got warmed up just by getting massaged. You might be able to sense kind of a different quality in the two legs. That's pretty cool to look for. All right, y'all, let's come up and switch sides. So again, if you're without tennis ball, sorry about that. I tried to prep us last time. You're just going to the claw action again, the toe spread, and maybe some piano work. If you've got the tennis ball, we're on side 2. About half the total time just going away at the arch, going after that arch. Especially with a relatively soft ball. I have a fairly old tennis ball. Even a new one I think would be fine. The lacrosse balls are a little different. We had those for a while. Those are pretty firm, so you might, just be a bit more judicious about how you lay down the weight depending on what you're pressing into. But if it feels good, you can just lay down the weight, right, and step on it fully. But do explore the other part of your foot. Outside edge, around the little toe, and out of the arch. Up high near the pad. Hang out in singular tight spots for a moment if you discover any. Oh! And at some point, let that ball be under the pad of your foot, close to the toes. And do that little piano move where you kind of move the toes around a little bit. And then the very last move. is just a little dorsiflex, right? The opposite of pointing your foot. You drop in your heel. It's like the opposite of wearing a high heel. And you bend forward and you just sample. Oh. Oh. Oh my gosh. All right. Finally, everybody, let's come on up from there. Yee-hole. Let's clear the tennis ball off to the side. Depending on how time treats us, I doubt we'll have time, but we might come back to it at the very end of the session for just a brief little shoulder release. Okay, so switching gears a little bit. Feel like we hit the feet pretty solidly, warmed up shoulders, warmed up hips, warmed up legs. So we are going to, this is kind of unique to the X class, a little bit more cardiovascular activity and a little bit of like a big full body warm up. This thing hits everywhere and it's old school exercise. Jumping jacks, 1 minute, okay? So if you just can't do the jumping, just go wide, wide, narrow, narrow. Wide, wide, narrow, narrow. If you can, work with it. Lock down the ribs. Draw back through the hyoid bone. Keep the trunk pretty composed. And just get it going. And you can start out relatively modest, both with the speed and how wide you jump and how high you jump. And if in the last 30 seconds you want to push the boundaries a little bit, you can jump wider. You can reach the arms higher. You can even go faster. That's a minute. Feel your heart getting stronger. All right. Obviously, that takes a little coordination too, and different for the bones, and just very different kind of activity. All right. Back to the center. Some high knees. So if you need a little break on the work for your heart, do this one on the slower side. If you want to hit the heart a little harder, run through this one. Got about a minute. You can also skip, which is just like a fraction of a second where both feet are off the ground. Running, it's a longer period of time, both feet off the ground. You can also do more of a march, so you get more active with your upper body. Almost done. Awesome. And then let's release that. Next, I'm presuming you all have a wall. Wall squat. 1 minute. So it's a nice opportunity to get your hips as low as your knees. Excellent squat to work with if your knees are a little dicey in general squats, because you can lean back more with this one. You can really find that hyoid bone action, because here you get the tactile feedback of when that hyoid bone has gone back, head hits the wall. If you had a TheraBand wrapped around your legs, you'd be keeping a little tension on it. Reach both arms out. Last little bit here. Do circles that just exceed the size of your shoulder. In that the outside of the fist goes a little wider than shoulder. At the low point, fist is a little lower than shoulder. At the inner part of the circle, you're a little bit narrower than the shoulders. And at the high point, you're a little above the shoulders. Switch the circles opposite direction. You want this squat to cook. Okay. And then let's release that with the arms. Last couple breaths of just squatting. Actually on for our 2-minute version here. Oh man. Awesome. Let's come up. Next. Let's get the trusty dumbbells. So remember, from any dumbbell activity or kettlebell, it's super easy to just not use the bells. I.e., you just use your own body weight. You do the exact same movement pattern, but with just your body weight. No foreign weight to hold. All right. Otherwise, palms can turn forward. Shoulders open up. Bicep curl. And palms turn forward. Butt is squeezed. Ribs are locked down. Upward press. Down. Forward. And down. So we want to do 10 solid versions of these. Maybe 20 if you have no weight. Curl. Rotate. Press, lower, rotate, slow tricep extension, don't miss that one. 8 more. Every one of these, with or without weight, still good form in the trunk. All of those Tadasana reminders we opened with, still present here. In fact, as soon as you start carrying a heavier load, all of those alignment elements are arguably even more important. Last 3. Last 2. Last 1. Nice. With or without the weights. Squeeze them together. Right, so you would just do this basically with your fists. This is called a goblet squat. So you're holding these guys tucked into your front, kind of like the way we had our arms crossed in front of our chest in the beginning of the session. And here we're going down, tapping elbows to knees. So that low in a squat. And then back up. Just maintaining the goblet. Just working on lower body. Well, that's not true. The upper body's working hard to maintain the arm position. But the arms aren't moving. 6 more. 2 more. Last one. Pause at the bottom. Bring your arms along your side, right under your shoulders. 10 times row upward. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk out, hopefully with your weights, to a plank position. Then we will alternate pushing and pulling. So you do 1 push-up, which is the push, then you pull 1 weight up. Push, pull, push, pull. Two more. Step to a lunge. With or without the weight, twist the lunge. With or without the weight, squeeze down in the lunge. Just one more time, the push and the pull. Plank, push, pull, push, pull. One more time in the lunge, new side. With or without the weights, twist. Oh, God. With or without the weights, come down into the lunge. It's warm. And then finally release. Goodness. Sweating like a beast. Okay. Next, we're going to take a single weight. Bend the knees. And just do a little side to side. So it's kind of like the goblet. Rotating your trunk just a little bit. Now if that feels really good, you can rotate and drop the weight. I mean, don't drop it, but move it further, like an old school Russian twist. Let it tap the ground. Last couple. Awesome. Then we're going to come down onto our back, weight free. And one set of bicycles here, everybody, which is kind of brutal, but just do what you can, and then we'll go into kind of stretchy rest mode. So, last full gear exercise here. Lift the head and your shoulders. So your whole upper trunk works, but your neck is just spared having to do any extra work. It gets a little extra help. Lift up your feet. Oh, goodness. And then try some diagonal controlled movement. So you're taking your elbow towards your bent knee, thrusting the opposite leg straight ahead at a diagonal. Even more than just trying to fly your elbow to your knee, you're thinking about your uppermost torso getting knit to the opposite corner lower hip. So it's really more like armpit to hip, but eventually elbow to knee might be part of it too. Last couple. Oh, let's release all of that. We're going to set 2 flat feet on the floor. Cross right ankle on top, figure 4 pose, and hug in. And just really feel that sweet stretch in your upper outer cross leg hip. Keep the same figure 4, but just with a little strategic switch of where your hands are. Let the lever leg go straight up. Oh, man. Okay. Same leg crossed over, let this lever leg come back to bend. Let this leg we've been pulling on come to rest on the floor. And then let this leg pile fall toward the lever leg. So your top crossed leg foot lands on the floor. And then you can do it, oh my God, a diagonal stretch away from that scene with your trunk. Oh, that feels glorious. Goodness. Whew. So basically all the place of like massive tension during the abdominal exercises now gets kind of opened up and a little stretch and more relaxation in there. Plus rotation, of course. Oh. Last couple breaths here, then we'll do this 3-parter on the new side. And we'll close out. Oh my God, that feels good. So please everybody, no hurry, but let's get this whole thing going on the new side. You come back to center. 2 flat feet on the floor. Cross the new leg on top. Hug with the bent leg. Phase 1, bent leg is bent. Sorry, let me rephrase. The leg that you do the hugging with is bent. Opposite legs getting the figure 4 stretch. Pigeon pose. In due time, without changing the pigeon shape, you just let the lever leg get straight. No hurry through the transitions, but when you're ready for it, you come back to a bent lever leg, the leg you've been actually pulling on. You let that dude sit on the floor, and then you twist all the way until that cross leg hits the ground at the foot. And then the trunk goes on a perfect oh, God. That was so sweet. Just got some sort of crazy release there. Opening through the side of your back, the side of your waist. This one's glorious. Feed it with a few deep conscious breaths. Wow. No hurry, but come on back to center. Reset 2 flat feet. And let's go ahead and, sorry, I popped up there. I didn't mean to set the wrong message there. We're actually going to stay on our back. I was just making sure we're on point with the time. We're going to stay on our back and just transition into 2 straight legs. No, 2 straight legs. Let the arms open out to the sides. And just before we go into complete release mode, let's just deliberately follow a few breaths. So really take a moment and get settled. Even before the breath work, you're welcome to just, depending on where you are in your corpse, get it adjusted. Get a blanket, get an eye pillow, move things out of the way, depending on whether you like to add more to it or subtract. And then let's direct our attention to the breathing sensations. And feel free to process a few deep, mindful breaths. So maybe even just beyond watching the breathing. You might deliberately take a big inhale, possibly even hold it, and let it go, maybe even with sound. Maybe with a moan. More of a sigh. And then at some point, it'll probably just happen naturally for you. Let go of all those top-down breathing exercises. See it for just 3 or 4 minutes on the clock. It's a relatively short amount of time. You can just let go of top-down control altogether. Sarvesham Swasti Bhavantu Sarvesham Shanti Bhavantu Sarvesham Puranam Bhavantu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavantu. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings attain fullness. May all beings attain auspiciousness. Such a lovely sentiment. Oh, man. Well, if you haven't already, please make your way up to a comfortable seat. Right. All right, everybody. Thanks for coming today and practicing yoga together. Namaste. Okay, everybody, I know this is going to break it. We'll drop back into it in a second, but I just have to share it with you. My dog has the most uncanny way of timing his defecation with when I'm about to film. And somehow he's able to time it and go drop log right when I'm about ready to start filming, or right when we've gotten going. So anyway, I gotta go clean up shop. So